In this video, I'm going to discuss the final result of application rate for SBF this year. Let's start with the total supply and demand first for all flat types and for all groups of applicants. As you can see on the chart, for all towns, the amount of demand already surpassed its supply with the exception of Queenstown. But other than that, even Bukit Merah and also Kalang Whampoa that have quite a lot of stock, in terms of the demand, it already way surpassed its supply. Now let's talk about two-room flexi, starting with the supply and demand first. Kalang Whampoa becomes the most sought after town for two-room flexi SBF, and then the runner-up is Yishun at 554, and then the second runner-up is Hougang with 528. Now let's look at the application rate for two-room flexi for seniors. Right now, in the final results, Tampines continue to take the lead, and the application rate is 31. And then the runner-up is Sembawang at 25.7, and the second runner-up is Pasir Ris with 23.2. Now let's look at the application rate for two-room flexi for singles in this SBF. The number is at triple digit, and what you're looking at right now is not the number of unit but literally the application rate. So for example, for Tengah, there are 255 singles who will be fighting for one two-room flexi in Tengah. I think this data goes to show that indeed statistics has proven over and over again that for singles, if you want to get a two-room flexi, the competition is less fierce in BTO versus in SBF. Probably because this SBF round for two-room flexi has very limited supply as well, and the majority of the supply is prioritized for seniors. So I think that also contributes a lot to this result. Now let's look at the two-room flexi application rate for first-timer families. For first-timer families, the numbers are more humane. For Sembawang, for example, the application rate is 1.3, which is already the highest. But then as you can see, for other towns, the application rate is 1 or under 1. So congratulations for first-timer families. If you have applied for two-room flexi this SBF, seems like you will be able to secure a flat. Next up, let's discuss about the two-room flexi application rate for second-timer families. Jurong East and West ends up at 15, Kalang Whampoa at 2, Tengah at 7, and Yishun at 7.5. Now let's look at the three-room flat for this SBF. Currently, I'm showing the total supply and demand. So as you can see, for Queenstown, there are close to 500 units available for three-room. But then, until the end of the sales period, only less than 100 applicants applied for three-room in this SBF. So that would be interesting because this is like 20% of the supply. And then for Bukit Merah and Kalang Whampoa, who also have quite a lot of supply, the amount of demand also is still smaller versus the supply. So that would be interesting to understand what will happen to the balance. Is it going to be released in open booking flat or in future SBF process? Now let's look at the three-room application rate for first-timer families. The highest application rate is at Woodlands with 8.3, and then after that, we are seeing several towns where the application rate is almost the same with 4.4, Punggol, Sembawang, and also Tengah. But then as you can see, for towns that have a lot of supply, Bukit Merah, Kalang Whampoa, and Queenstown, the application rate is still very minimal, which means that for those of you who applied for three-room in this SBF process, congratulations. And I believe that you will also be comfortable in picking the flat because there's so many units available to choose from. Now let's look at the application rate for three-room for second-timer families. So second-timer families at Bedok is 47. For central area, it's 10. For Kalang Whampoa is 9.9. Bukit Merah 7.8 and Queenstown at 2.9. Now, in my understanding, if the stock is still not taken up by first-timer families, I think it should be allocated or being offered to the second-timer families. So in my opinion, the winner for this SBF would be second-timer families, especially for three-room and also later on for rooms. Because even though the application rate is not very favorable, so for example, Bukit Merah is 7.8, Kalang Whampoa at 9.9, but then again, if let's say there are so many untaken units by the first-timer families, then I think it will go to the second-timer families. Please comment down below if that's not the case. I would like to learn as well. Now let's look at the 4-room flat. Currently, I'm showing the total supply and demand for this SBF. And as you can see, for Queenstown, there was a last-minute jump because previously it was at 668 in terms of the number of applicants. So at the end of the sales period, the number of demand for Queenstown finally surpassed its supply. And then other towns that have quite a lot of supply, Bukit Merah and Kalang Wampoa, also already well exceed beyond the amount of supply. Now let's look at the application rate for first-timer families. The highest is at Sengkang with 14.7, and then runner-up is Rangoon with 10.8, and then the second runner-up is Pasir Ris with 10. And then for the three towns that have the most supply, Bukit Merah, Kalang Wampoa, and Queenstown, the application rate looks very good because it's about 1 or even less than 1. So I think for those of you who applied for 4-room for first-timer families in these three towns, you would have a very good chance in securing a nice home. Next up, let's talk about the 4-room application rate for first-timer families. Now for Woodlands, again, the numbers is still in the triple digit, where there are 218 applicants fighting for 4-room flat. I think the problem for Woodlands is the amount of supply is very limited, but then there are so many people interested in it. If you're keen to have a house in Woodlands, FYI, that actually in the June 2026 BTO launch, there is a land plot in Woodlands that is being offered by HDB. And what's interesting about that land plot is that it is not located near the Woodlands North area as how it used to be in previous launches. This one is more towards the city center, so I think a lot of people would be interested in it. The runner-up for 4-room in this SBF process in terms of popularity would be Bishan with 131, and then the second runner-up is Jurong East and West with 104 applicants. Now, for the towns that have a lot of supply, Bukit Merah, Kalang Wampoa, and also Queenstown, the application rate for second-timer families is more than 10. However, if there's any untaken units by the first-timer families, I think it will be offered to the second-timer families. So hopefully you'll have a good chance in securing a 4-room flat in this SBF process. Now let's look at the bigger flats, so 5-room, 3-gen, and also executive apartment. So I'm currently showing you the total supply and demand. As you can see, Woodlands takes the crown with 494 total applicants, and then the runner-up is Tampines with 331, and then after that the second runner-up is Sengkang. Now let's look at the application rate for first-timer families for these bigger flats. Sengkang is at 9.9, and then the runner-up is Pasir Ris with 7.9, and Choa Chu Kang is the second runner-up with 7.5. For second-timer families, as usual, the numbers are more dramatic. For Woodlands, the application rate is 277, followed by Tampines with 190. Like even the lowest is Bukit Batok, but that is already 34. So that's going to be tough. Now, for these bigger flats, unfortunately, HDB does not have a lot of supply in this SBF for these bigger flats. So I think there will be no like leftover or untaken flats from the first timer allocation. So it seems that for second timer families, probably if you want these bigger flats, you can apply for future BTO or even future SBF, because if you check out my other video talking about Sembawang BTO for this February, actually they have plenty of leftover untaken units for 5-room in Sembawang, which I believe it should go into future SBF. So if you are keen on that, you can consider or wait for the future SBF process, or of course you can also apply for 5-room, because in the upcoming June 2026, actually there are several projects that are offering 5-room and even 3-gen. So check out my other video discussing about the June 2026 overview. Next up, let's talk about CCA. So for CCA, until the end of the sales period, we can see that for 3 towns, Bedok, Geylang, and Queenstown, the amount of supply is still higher than the demand. And then in terms of the application rate, the highest is Bukit Batok with 6.6, where the other 3 towns are less than 1. As usual, I'm currently showing you the screen recording of the SBF table shared by HDB. If you want to know the application rate for BTO, please check out my other videos. I will also create a separate video sharing my opinion about this BTO and SBF launch, which apparently have quite a lot of plot twists. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye. To support my work, you can give a one-time tip by pressing the thanks button, pick the amount that you want, and click buy and send. Or you can also press the join button for exclusive contents and monthly membership. Your support means a lot to keep us independent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.